order. Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Alderwoman Tyus, Vice Chair Odenberg, Alderwoman Saunier,
Present.
Alderwoman Chair Boyd,
Present.
Alderwoman Tyus, Vice Chair Odenberg. We have two present.
Thank you. We are not going to approve the minutes because we don't have the quorum, but we are going to recognize Mr. King, who has for discussion, it'll be the Rodeo 2 ban. And so him and I had talked tremendously in regards to, which I didn't even know about the bulls and how they were being treated. So I asked him if he could come and speak at a meeting to kind of let us know and educate us on the Health and Human Development Committee on what the challenges are that they're up against and how the animals are being treated. So, Mr. King, you're on.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Pam. And again, thank you. You said that we met and clarified that, and I appreciate you taking the time to invite me and everything too. And I also want to thank Alderwoman Smith, Murta, and Saunier for listening to my presentation. And again, thank you, Pam, for bringing me on. But I'll share my screen here too. Let me just put this here. Okay, so share screen. Let me just press this. Okay, so you'll be able to see my screen. And now I'm going to, okay, play from start. Okay, and then, oh, you know what, actually, let me just remove this. Hold on one second. There we are. I can't get this, there we go. Okay, now it's off. Technical difficulties. Okay, so can everybody see my screen okay?
Yeah, I can see it.
Awesome, awesome. And then everybody can hear me okay?
Uh-huh.
Okay, so a proposed ban on rodeo tools in St. Louis. And so I'm Matthew King. I'm from the Christian Animal Rights Association. And I had brought this up to Pam, and she wanted me to speak here at the meeting concerning mostly how animals are treated, but also how this is a public health and public safety issue. And so I wanted to bring this to all of your attention. And so basically, there's two rodeos happening right now in St. Louis. And a lot of people don't realize too what the events are exactly. So I wanted to just sort of give you a brief overview of, a lot of people don't really know what rodeo is or where it starts or you know what's involved. So just to give you a brief overview, there's 6 different events. The first one is steer wrestling. That's where usually a cowboy will jump off of a horse and then onto a bull's back and then wrestle them to the ground. And that's also known as bulldogging. And then there's also team roping, which is where they'll send a calf running, and then 2 cowboys will try to catch them, one by the head and then one by the leg. And then calf roping, that's also known as tie down roping. That's where they grab the calf, they jump off the horse, grab the calf, and then tie his legs together and then put him on his side. And then barrel racing, that's probably the most benign one of all of these. That's the one where usually it's a cowgirl and she's riding a horse and then they just go around the barrels. So that one's actually not bad at all. But the ones I wanted to focus on, which are the 2 worst, I think that I definitely want to bring to all of your attention is bull riding and bronc riding. And so obviously bull riding is where a cowboy will ride a bull for 8 seconds while they're bucking. And then bronc riding is where they ride a horse for 8 seconds while the bronc is bucking. But depending on the organization of the league, they may perform all, several, or just one of these activities at a scheduled event. And then I'm going to focus on bull and bronc riding because they're definitely the most harmful, and they use harmful equipment like the flank strap and the electric prod. And so you'll hear me reference that throughout the presentation about the harmful equipment that's used on these animals. But also too, if I'm going too fast too, just let me know because I tend to talk kind of fast. But if you guys have any questions too, feel free to stop me. Or you can wait till the end. That's fine too. But so rodeos in St. Louis, there's currently 2 that are happening. The first one is a yearly event. It's the Southeastern Rodeo Association, SERA. It takes place yearly at the Chaffetz Arena, which is this year is happening at June 21st, 2025. So it's about 9 days. But the events include bronc riding, steer wrestling, calf roping, barrel racing, team roping, bull riding, and junior barrel racing for kids. I'm not even sure what steer on decorating is. I put that down I looked it up, and it's not a very common one, and it doesn't seem very harmful. But And then the big one is professional bull riders. That's PBR. That takes place yearly at the Enterprise Center, which this year is scheduled for December 7th through the 8th, 2025. And they just do bull riding, but that's the most harmful event by far. And that happens yearly in December, and just happened December 7th and 8th in 2024, I believe, as well. But bull riding, I just wanted to give you guys sort of an overview of it. But basically, bull riding is a rodeo event where a rider attempts to stay mounted on a bucking bull for 8 seconds. And so the rider holds a rope around the bull's chest with one hand, and then the other hand is free. But it's the most popular rodeo event, and there's an entire rodeo league called the Professional Bull Riders, PBR, which shows up yearly in St. Louis. But they make a spectacle out of just that one event. But the bucking scene in these animals, it's very unnatural. Like the bucking, now animals will buck if you ride their back, but not to such an exaggerated fashion. And a lot of that is because of the equipment they use. But I have here the bucking scene in these animals causes a great deal of long-term damage to their spines and pelvises. So like, for instance, a 2017 study concluded results indicated bucking bulls were more likely than non-bucking bulls to develop horn and sinus disorders and musculoskeletal disorders of the vertebral region and the pelvic limbs. And so the vertebral region being the spine and the pelvic limbs being the hip area. And so they get a lot of long-term problems from this exaggerated bucking. But there's also bronc riding. That's the other event I wanted to focus on. Bronc riding involves riders attempting to stay on a bucking horse, which is known as a bronc, for 8 seconds. Like the Denver Broncos, that's named after what would be a bucking horse. But there are two types, which is bareback bronc riding and saddle bronc riding. And so in bareback, the riders use a rigging attached to the horse's back, similar to bull riding. And then in saddle bronc, they use a specialized saddle. So it's basically if they have a saddle or they don't. And the rider's score is based on their skill and the horse's bucking difficulty. And so there's that. But the main thing I wanted to, I had told Pam about this as well, is that bull and bronc riding is emotionally traumatizing and something that's been well documented. But one notable source states, based on observed behavior, the evidence indicates that bull riding is a stressful, frightening experience for the bull. And there's no evidence that the bulls enjoy the experience. And so the bulls very much don't like what's happening here. And then also another source states, horses and cattle are prey animals, and their reaction to being ridden in this way is the same as their reaction to being attacked by a predator, a situation where they experience increased fear, stress, and panic. And so these horses and cattle are undergoing a lot of fear, stress, and panic based on what they're going through this riding activity, this bucking behavior. And then an entire veterinary coalition stated, behaviors indicating distress during bucking events. And now this is what I'm going to show you with pictures too. But behaviors indicating distress in these animals include mouth gaping, tongue protrusion, a fixed stare, and eye white in horses. And then also the big one, excessive mucoid salivation, tail swishing, fixed stare, mouth gaping, and tongue protrusion in bulls. And the big one that is most obvious is the mucoid salivation. That's a sign that these animals are experiencing fear, stress, and panic, or signs of distress. And so I'll show you this. I'm going to bring your attention to that soon. But basically, animals sometimes get hurt in the arena as well, including broken legs and spines. And so I'll mention that a little bit later as well. But bulls and horses, they buck because of the flank strap. And that's a critical thing that I wanted to focus on as well, is a lot of people will go to rodeos and say, oh, well, these animals are just doing it naturally. That's a very natural behavior. And it somewhat is, but they do it in this exaggerated and sort of entertaining fashion because of the equipment that's being put on them. And so that's what I wanted to show you. Bulls and horses do not buck in such an exaggerated fashion like this naturally. They do it because of the flank strap, which is also known as the flank rope. And this strap is designed to annoy the bull or horse and cause them to try to kick it off, which results in this exaggerated bucking behavior. And so several studies indicate this. So like one study regarding bull riding, it says there's likely to be discomfort or irritation from the flank strap and the chest rope. And so a study regarding bull riding acknowledges that the bull is feeling discomfort and irritation from that flank strap, and so he's trying to kick it off. And then also a study regarding bronc riding, it said there may be some discomfort to the horse from the rider and due to the presence of a flank strap. And so this study also acknowledges that the horse that is bucking is experiencing discomfort. And again, this is for the sake of, it's not for any legitimate reason. Like, it's not for food. It's not for, some beneficial reason to humans. This is all just for entertainment and amusement. And so there's also landmark flank strap studies that were done, and these are fairly recent. Like this one, it says these animals buck because of the discomfort of the flank strap. For instance, one report states there has to be discomfort and pressure pain to the bucking horse with the flank strap just from the plain and simple nerve anatomy of the area involved. The animal is reacting to rid himself of this tormenting device. And so this study acknowledges that the flank strap is a tormenting device, and it's tormenting the animals, which causes them to buck like this. And so one study puts it very bluntly also regarding bulls. The purpose of the flank rope is to produce an annoyance to the bull. And so basically these rodeos are causing annoyance for the sake of entertainment. And I'm going to show you some pictures actually that demonstrate this so you have an idea of what I'm talking about, because it's a little bit abstract. But bull riding pictures, so I'm going to bring your attention to the picture on the left here. You can see right there the bull has a fixed stare. That's a sign of distress. And then he's also got a little bit of saliva coming out. But you can see very clearly on the towards the back hind of the animal that flank strap. And that's why he's bucking like that. And then you see the people, getting amusement from this in the back. And then also this one, the picture in the middle, you can't see the flank strap as much on this one. There's the rope that he's holding onto on the bull's chest, but you very much see the mucoid salivation. It's that sign that bull is in distress, is that excessive salivation. And a lot of people in rodeo call that bull snot. And a lot of times the more they see that, the more that they'll call it a good ride, but it's very much the animal in distress. And so there's these subtle clues that, you wouldn't even notice it unless, you had a person that was trained to tell you. But, and then on the right here, you see this cowboy. You very much can probably see the fixed stare on the bull there, and then as well as the tongue protrusion. That's a sign of distress. And then it's kind of hard to see on his skin, but you can see that his skin is dimpling towards his back hind legs. That's because of the flank strap. And so he's trying to kick that flank strap off, and that's why he bucks like that. And then just a couple more pictures too. This one is after the bull bucked the cowboy off, but you can see that flank strap very clearly towards the hindquarters, and then also the rope that's around his chest for the cowboy to hold on to. But as you can see, the cowboy's not even on him there, and those animals will continue to buck despite the rider not even being on there because they're trying to kick that strap off. And then this is just trigger warning too. There's a couple pictures that are kind of gruesome, but this is a bull. You can kind of see the flank strap on his back there, but this is a bull that broke his leg during a bull riding event. And then also this one, bull broke his leg right there, as you can see. And then this one is a particularly bad one because you can't really see the flank strap here so much, but there is the bull having the mucoid salivation. And usually it's a sign too. It's very bad when they start having those ropes, that sort of rope of mucoid salivation. And you can see that here. It goes up and then arcs and then goes even onto his shoulder and then off of the shoulder. And so very much in distress there. And then I had a chat come up. Alderman Oldenburg is present. Thank you. Okay, awesome. Thank you. And so what you can see there is the mucoid salivation. Oops. And then one more bull riding pic. I wanted to sort of highlight this, but here's the cowboy. And you can't see too much with the bull, the symptoms there, but you can see I highlighted it for you, the flank strap there on the hindquarters. And that's what's causing that bucking behavior where the bull is kicking his feet at least 3 feet in the air. And that's not very natural. If a cowboy's riding them, they may buck maybe a foot in the air at most, but with this rope, they're bucking that extreme bucking behavior. And that's what's causing that. And then also, just to give you some more pictures, bronc riding. So you can very clearly see with this, the cowboy is riding this horse, and he has, it looks like 2 flank straps actually here on the horse on the hindquarters. And again, that's that abnormal bucking behavior that you see. And then likewise, this one is a pretty profound picture. The horse has his head downward and then is kicking his legs at least 3 feet in the air, and has that 2 flank straps around his abdomen. And that's cinched really tight too, so that the horse tries to buck that off. And then some more bronc riding pictures. You can see here, again, the horse has his head downward, the legs are up in the air, and it's because of that flank rope that's back there. And it's tied, this one is to the saddle, so it's tied to the saddle as well. And then this one too, you can see the flank strap towards the left of the picture on the right side of the horse's body. And then some more bronc riding pictures. There you can see the flank strap again. This one has 2 on actually, one in the mid abdomen and one in the back towards the hindquarters. And so the horse is trying to rid himself of that tormenting device there. And then also too has his feet way up in the air. And then this one, it looks like the horse fell over, but he has 2 flank straps around his abdomen that I guess he probably quit, and then the rider's falling off there. But a lot of these are from advertisements as well too, so they're showing you right exactly what's happening. And then here another one, the horse has the flank strap around his abdomen. And this one, you see the exaggerated bucking behavior. Can't really see the flank strap too much, but you see the 3 feet in the air horse. His legs are that high because of the flank strap. And then finally, just the one last picture here of the horse, but I wanted to highlight it for you because this one I think has maybe 2 or 3 flank straps on him. But this is bronc riding, and that's the flank strap right there with the 2 to 3 of them that are wrapped around his abdomen. And then you see the legs kicking out that far too, and that's not something that they would do naturally. And so with that, I think I covered the flank strap pretty well, but I wanted to talk about the electric prod. And that's another thing that's used with bull and bronc riding. And so the electric prod obviously is a device that administers an electric shock to an animal. And so the electric prod is also known as the hot shot. And so here's some pictures of that. These are the handheld ones. Sometimes they'll be on a stick, but a lot of times these cowboys try to conceal them because they know that the public is not very happy with electric prods being used on animals to make them buck. And so what you see is the hot shot there on the left, and then there's another one that it's kind of the size of their hand. And so they use that in these events. But the use of the electric prod, electric cattle prods, also known as hot shots, are sometimes used in rodeos, particularly in saddle bronc riding, bareback bronc riding, and bull riding, to help animals get to the chute and perform. And so that's another sign that these animals are very unwilling, is because they're shocked and encouraged to get to the chute, because a lot of times they don't want to. And why would they? They have this strap around their abdomen and they're put in these distressful situations. And so the electric prod forces them to go into the chute and out to the arena. And then sometimes in some of the smaller leagues, they actually shock them before they head out for the run or for the bucking behavior. And then it makes them buck even more and has that exaggerated bucking behavior. But like one credible source states about rodeo, cruel tools like the hot shot are used to make the animals perform. This is an electric prod that scares an animal into displaying abnormally dramatic reactions through intense pain. And so a lot of times they'll shock them on their shoulder, and then they kind of do it under disguise too. Like a lot of times you wouldn't even see it because it looks like they're maybe petting their head or something, and then they hit them right before they open the gate. And so that's something to look for. But there's evidence of harm caused by the electric prod, and that's in numerous studies. Like a reputable scientific committee focused on animal welfare states, it is generally acknowledged that electric prods cause pain and stress and should therefore be avoided if possible. And then also one reliable source states the hot shot will at times draw blood and will always produce skin damage. And so you can actually see this on the bulls too if you get up close to them. They have these sort of dimpling areas on their skin where they've been pressed with the electric prod. An entire veterinary coalition stated administering an electric shock to any animal causes suffering through pain and potential injury, which constitutes cruelty. And so, and again, the electric prods, it's used by a lot of industries that, you could say is necessary, like for food, things like that. But again, this is for the sake of entertainment. This is for the sake of a bull putting on a performance for a crowd. And so that's where the ethics come in. But the animals are obviously unwilling, and that's something that the equipment highlights. Is there's many events involving animals that involve the animals doing it willingly. Like I always use the example of dog agility. This is evident by the fact that the animals do not require equipment to make them perform in dog agility. And so these animals are obviously unwilling to do this because otherwise the equipment would not be necessary. So like, for instance, agility dogs, they generally love the activity. And I don't know if you've seen agility dogs, but they go up and down hills and go through hoops and stuff, and all they really require is a whistle just to show them where to go, and their tails wagging, they like doing it. And that's further evidenced by the fact that they don't require any equipment on their body to make them perform. But rodeo, specifically bull and bronc riding, require the use of flank straps and electric prods to torment, annoy, discomfort, stress, and inflict pain on these bulls and horses to get them to perform against their will. And so aptly, this coerced performance creates great distress for the animal. And but also because of that, distressing animals with these instruments also causes harm to humans too. And I'm going to show you that too. And then, of course, too, just let me know if anybody has any questions so far if I'm moving too fast. But I wanted to focus also on the harm done to humans with these activities. But basically, bull riding is one of the most dangerous sports in the world, if not the most. Like, according to one source, it says rodeo athletes are injured or die at higher rates than athletes from any other sport. The bull riding injury rate is over 10 times the rate of injury in football and over 13 times the rate of ice hockey. And so, extremely dangerous is for sure one thing about bull riding. And then also there was a study done that looked at injuries to humans or the human athletes within rodeo. And it says, according to a study, Myers and Laurent found bull riding was responsible for the greatest proportion of rodeo injuries, accounting for 28 to 50% of all rodeo related injuries. And so bull riding was definitely the most dangerous, accounting for over a quarter to almost half or nearly or half of all rodeo related injuries to the athletes. And then subsequent injury rates include saddle bronc and bareback riding events. So that bronc riding is 20 to 23%. So about a quarter to a fifth of all athlete injuries. Also, calf roping is pretty low. It's about 3 to 12%. Steer wrestling is about 8%. Team roping is 1 to 4%. And then the most benign of them all, barrel racing. That's where the horse just goes around the barrels. That's a mere 0 to 3%. And so that's a pretty benign one. I actually don't even like to include that because barrel racing is so benign for the most part. But bull riding can also cause fatal injuries, and that's something that we're seeing a lot of lately, actually, this year. And so just a trigger warning, too. Some of these pictures are a little bit graphic. But just this February, a bull rider, this is down in Florida, at a bull riding event. In February 2025, a bull rider had his jugular, or his neck, punctured by the animal's horn, which caused him to bleed profusely in front of the crowd. And something to keep in mind, too, is a lot of children go to these events because a lot of parents think, oh, well, this is, a family-friendly event. I don't have to worry about anything that my kid should be not exposed to, and then this happens. And so surprisingly, this athlete lived, but I wanted to show you some pictures like this one. Again, trigger warning, a little bit graphic. But this rider, as you can see, the horn actually went through his throat, which is profoundly, I'm actually surprised he lived. But again, this picture is worse coming up. But this rider, as you can see, he was bleeding profusely. The ambulance had to come in. And this is not like a freak occurrence. This happens quite often, is where these riders are injured, and it's only natural too because of this gyration that this bull is doing, and it's not safe for the rider either. But as you can see, he was bleeding everywhere, and he actually had to go to the hospital. And luckily, he lived. But one gentleman actually wasn't so lucky. However, another participant wasn't so fortunate. In just this April 2025, a young athlete was trampled to death by the bull he was riding. And so bull riding can cause death, and that's something that does happen. It's happened. They actually made a movie called 8 Seconds. It was about a bull rider that was trampled to death, and it was a true story. But Dylan Grant, he was a 24-year-old professional bull rider with PBR. Or actually, he might not have been with PBR, but anyways, he was a professional bull rider, and he died after being bucked off a bull and trampled during a Wharton County Youth Fair Extreme Bulls event. This was down in Texas. But Grant, who hailed from Laramie, Wyoming, was competing in the second round of the event when he was bucked off and suffered fatal injuries. And then he was rushed to a hospital in Houston, Texas, but unfortunately died from his injuries. And so he was trampled to death by the bull that he was riding. And that's because, the bull probably didn't even mean to do it. He was just bucking because he's trying to get that flank strap off of his abdomen. Because bulls and cows, as everybody knows, are pretty docile creatures. And so to get them to do this, they require a great deal of equipment. And then the main thing I wanted to talk about, too, this is probably the one that you guys are most concerned with the health committee, is rodeos are a public safety risk. And this is something that's pretty well documented. Rodeos have had numerous animals flee from the arena and cause havoc. And I didn't cite every single example because there's usually 2 or 3 every year. But the most blatant examples, in 2022, a bull escaped a California rodeo and injured 5 spectators. And so I'll show you a picture of that. And then also in 2023, a rodeo bull escaped a Utah event and hurt 2 viewers. And then finally, just recently in 2024, a bull jumped the arena fence at an Oregon rodeo and injured several people. And so what you get is when you have these animals and you're tormenting them, they're of course going to try to escape the arena. And so what you see is with these pictures, I want to show you of what this looks like when these animals escape. So animals escape rodeo. These are pictures. So this first one was from California. As you can see, in the stands there, this was I believe it was an outside event, but this bull was so tormented by that flank strap and the electric prod that he tried to jump the fence, and then he jumped into the fence and hurt 5 people. And so there was many broken bones and legs done to the spectators as well. And then this picture, this is from Utah. This is a bull that escaped an indoor arena, much like what happens in the Enterprise Center is an indoor facility. But this bull actually escaped outside and then started running into people in the parking lot. And so as you can see, there's cars there. The bull is trying to get that flank strap off, and the electric prod is causing him to run away like that. And then also this one was the most devastating, but this was in Oregon last year. They caught a really awful picture, but this bull was in this arena in Oregon and then jumped the fence. And then he ended up injuring a number of spectators in the arena as well. And so that was a big lawsuit as well, as you can imagine. But these bulls are, to get rid of their torment, they will try to escape the arena as well. And so they're a massive public safety risk. And then there's veterinarians that have spoke out against this. It's not just some animal rights perspective. It's also well known and documented within the experts of animal care, which are veterinarians. And so this veterinarian said, "I am both an attorney and a veterinarian who has treated both ranch and rodeo animals. In my youth, I rode bareback broncs in the rodeo." So she actually used to be a rodeo athlete turned veterinarian. And then she said, "After law school, I worked as a state criminal prosecutor where I witnessed how animal abuse leads to human abuse. Drawing on all of this expertise and experience, I can confidently say that rodeo is a cruel and archaic form of entertainment that should be outlawed." And so she's even speaking from, this isn't just someone that is against rodeo, it's someone that used to be in rodeo and has since become a critic of it, and especially as a veterinarian. And that was Peggy Larson, veterinarian, very well known in the community. And then also what other veterinarians have said, an entire veterinary coalition states, in contrast to this, rodeos normalize cruelty supported by the legality and promotion of these events. The inherent nature of rodeo events results in animal cruelty. And so this veterinary coalition said that rodeo is inherently cruel. And then also, just from an overseas perspective, Germany has banned rodeos, as well as the UK and also the Netherlands. But the German Association of Veterinarians for the Protection of Animals analyzed video footage of bucking behavior and recommended that bull riding should be prohibited. And so these are what experts have said in the field. And then also the RSPCA, which is the Royal Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals. They're based out of England, but they also work in Australia as well. And they said all rodeo events will cause stress, fear, and pain, as well as injure animals for the sake of sport and entertainment. Subjecting cattle and horses to these experiences is not justified. And so again, it's inflicting pain and suffering on animals for the sake of stress, fear, or for the sake of entertainment, and inflicting stress, fear, and pain as well for the sake of amusement, and nothing more. And so they claim it's not justified. And so the final portion of the presentation is what can be done. And what I like to talk about with council members like yourself is a rodeo ordinance. And so many cities in the United States have restrictions or bans on rodeos. This would not be controversial legislation because, like I said, many cities have this at the minimum. So that I want to talk about too, that's an outright versus a tools of torment ban. There's a couple different options that I like to present and sort of put the ball in your court about what you think. But Pam, I had discussed a tools of torment ban, and she was most interested in that. But I like to give you guys some options, so I'll go over the outright ban as well. But the outright ban, it prohibits the actual activities like bull riding, bronc riding, and other rodeo activities like calf roping. Or there's also the tools of torment ban, which permits rodeo activities like bull riding and bronc riding, but not the tools that hurt animals and cause them to become aggressive, like flank straps and electric prods. And so that's usually one that legislators are a little bit more comfortable with, but either way. But again, this would not be controversial legislation. It's not something that is new or profound. But the outright ban on rodeos, I just wanted to give you a look at what that might look like. Some localities have banned rodeos altogether, like the California cities of Chino Hills, Irvine, Laguna Woods, and Pasadena. And then likewise, San Francisco and Napa County, California have banned rodeo entirely. San Francisco actually was the second city in the country to ban rodeos. And then other cities have outright banned rodeos, like Greenburgh, New York. And then I cite these cities too, because I want to show you that it's not just a blue state or a red state issue. This is St. Petersburg, Florida has banned rodeos, as well as Fort Wayne, Indiana. And so these are cities within states that are red states. And, it's not just, some liberal idea or conservative idea. It's a bipartisan issue that other states have really looked at. And then the big one, Los Angeles is on the cusp of outright banning rodeos. And their law, it says, it shall be unlawful to organize or engage in any of the following activities for live public amusement or entertainment: bareback bronc riding, saddle bronc riding, bull riding, calf roping, steer wrestling, team roping, or any other activity that involves physically wrestling an animal to the ground, roping an animal, or attempting to ride and remain mounted on a bucking animal. And then they have a clause in there: this section shall not be construed to prohibit an equestrian, cultural, or other event, including an event described as a rodeo, that does not include any of the activities prohibited. And so they really went after 5 of the 6 events. They left barrel racing out of it, but they went after all 5 events and are aiming to ban all of them. And that should be passed sometime probably this year, probably December or something like that. But there's also the Tools of Torment ban, which might be a little bit more, the public might be more amenable to, in my experience. But this is a ban on equipment used in rodeos. And so the law doesn't ban rodeos outright, but prohibits using painful techniques and devices that cause animals suffering, torment, or injury. And so Leestown, Virginia, for example, they prohibit bucking straps and spurs. Likewise, Southampton, New York, they prohibit bucking straps and spurs. And then Pittsburgh, that was actually the first city in the country to ban or put any kind of legislation on rodeo. And they actually enacted an ordinance in 1992 after a bull broke his leg down at the Civic Arena. And there was families present, there was kids crying because they had to actually euthanize this bull right in the middle of the stadium. And so then after that, they passed an ordinance that bans electric prods, flank and bucking straps, wire tie downs, and sharpened or fixed spurs or rowels. And so rowels are basically the spinning part on a spur. And so they went pretty far and banned all of that harmful equipment. And then proposed Tools of Torment ban in New York City. Our ministry is behind this, but New York City currently has a proposed ordinance that probably will be voted on this year or next year. But this is what their law looks like. It says the term rodeo means any performance, competition, or exhibition in which skills traditionally associated with hired hands in the Western United States who tend cattle and perform duties on horseback, such as but not limited to riding bulls or broncos and roping animals, are performed. And so they have a little bit of a combination. You can do this as well, where it's a Tools of Torment plus a outright ban. And so like what they did, it says prohibitions during rodeos: no person shall engage in calf roping in connection with a rodeo. The legislators in New York particularly thought that calf roping was disgusting, so they went with that and tried to ban that. And then they said that no person shall use a flank strap on any animal in connection with a rodeo, and no person shall use an electric prod on any animal in connection with a rodeo. And so they did a little bit of a combination where they were going after the Tools of Torment as well as an outright ban on certain activities like calf roping. And so our recommendation, of course, and you can take this or leave it, but what we always recommend is that at a minimum, we would recommend a ban on equipment like flank straps and electric prods. And then this would still allow rodeo events in St. Louis, but would protect animals from torment, annoyance, discomfort, stress, and pain. And then since the electric prod and the flank strap provoke animals to become aggressive, it would also protect athletes and spectators. And so animals would be far less likely to escape the arena or become agitated without the harmful equipment. So if they're not having the flank strap cinched to their abdomen or having the electric prod put on their bodies, it's very doubtful that they would try to escape the arena or try to cause havoc like they do. And so that would be our recommendation. But that was the end of the slideshow. Let me just get out of that, and then I'll go to you guys. Let me just click this. Okay. Let me see how I get out of this. Okay. Stop share. Okay, there we are. Yeah, and so that was the presentation. And then yeah, you guys can let me know what you think, or if anything was confusing, please let me know.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. King, for your presentation. It was very enlightening.
Right.
I didn't know it was in that depth. And I guess when you see it, you don't realize how it's impacting those animals.
Right.
And so at this time, I was going to ask the clerk, do we have any speakers oppose or support?
We have no one.
Okay. And then I'll go to the committee. And so Alderman Alderberg, do you have any questions or comments?
Just a quick question regarding the bans that you've seen in other municipalities and other markets. Do you tend to get a lot of pushback from kind of the convention and business bureaus type? Because I feel like, events and activities are economic generators, having and drawing diverse crowds into downtowns often is a good thing. So do you see any lack of bookings of these with some of those tool of torment ordinances or anything? Because, right, I mean, St. Louis is like any other city. We're in constant competition for conventions and activities and events that do drive revenue. So I'm just curious if you've seen a sort of a pulling back of that as a result of some of these potential ordinances.
I think in San Diego, they have had an issue with that because they're working on a tools of torment ban in San Diego, and it's actually pretty controversial, but the mayor actually said that anything that was passed by the city council, he would not sign. And there's a lot of theories about he's sort of what's the word, in bed with the San Diego Padres, who want this event in their arena, and so they sort of have tied up with the mayor with that. That's the only one that's ever done it. Like LA, and I don't know if it might have to do with culture as well, but LA basically they're trying to pass that, and then they're getting a lot of flack from the rodeo industry, and so that's sort of the only pushback they got. But in other cities like New York City, there's been virtually no pushback whatsoever. Pittsburgh also, there was no pushback whatsoever. So it might just depend on the city as well, whether there's going to be. And in my experience too, the tools of torment ban is usually more favored because it's basically saying, you can still have the rodeo. We're not trying to say that you can't have the rodeo. We're saying that there's limits
You
on.
just can't use these devices that are pretty harmful to the animal. Yeah.
Right. And then
I got you. Okay.
yeah, that tends to be more supportive by the public as well as the legislators and things like that, in my experience. I think he's muted.
Any other questions?
Sorry. No, Mr. King. Thank you, Chairwoman. I have no other questions.
Thank you so much, Thomas. Good question.
Alderwoman Alicia Saunier, do you have any questions or comments?
Might be muted.
Chelsea, is she there?
Yes, Alderwoman, I'm trying to, I think she's having some difficulty switching over. There she is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hi. I don't have much, just I appreciate you presenting today. This was a lot of, information that I was unaware of. So it was good to get more. And I think, I don't know, I think I tend to unilaterally disagree with the tormenting of living life. Animals, humans, I tend to err on that side. So, I just appreciate you sharing the information. I find it interesting, the context. It's okay to kind of make a point like that versus other contexts is perceived as much more controversial. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. Yeah, thanks for hearing me out.
Okay. Well, Mr. King, we appreciate you coming before us, and thanks for your patience because it's been kind of crazy trying to get things coordinated. But on that note, we don't have anything else. We appreciate you, and we are going to look into it to see which way we can go as a committee, because our committee is focused on the health of animals and people. So we will look into it. And so do you have any last comments or anything for us?
I don't think so. Yeah, I just wanted to again thank you guys so much for for listening to me, and I appreciate you, Pam, too, inviting me. And yeah, I apologize too if it was a little long, but I just want to make sure everybody got a good view of what it was all about, and try to be comprehensive but also brief. So tough thing, but again, I thank you so much for having us, and then we'll be in touch with you guys too. That'd be great moving forward.
Yeah, it was interesting. You brought a lot of points that I didn't realize. And so, you know how you see things happening, but you don't connect the dots, and you're like, oh, okay, that's why they're bucking, or that's why they're doing what they're doing. And I just think with the electric thing, that really kind of threw me for a loop. And
Agreed.
so I'm I'm an advocate for animals and their safety and care. So,
Yes.
that's why I was interested and asked you to come speak to us. So
Absolutely.
on that note, we're going to go back up since we do have a quorum and we can do approval of minutes.
Mhm.
So could we get a motion to approve the minutes for May 15?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Could you call the roll, please, Ms. Clark?
Alderwoman Tyus. Vice Chair Oldenburg.
Aye.
Alderwoman Sanye.
Aye.
Chair Boyd.
Aye.
Alderwoman Tyus. We have 3 aye votes.
Thank you so much. We don't have any board bills to review, no resolutions. We did our discussion, so could we get, do we have any announcement? Any board members have any announcements? Okay. We'll excuse Alderwoman Tyus, and so I'll ask for a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, I have the best committee in the whole world. Thank you two so much.
Thank you. Have a good
All
day.
right. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody.